Now what we're going to do is we're going to add and subtract rationals with different denominators. So if you look at the example already done, we have a denominator of x minus 3 and a denominator of x plus 2. What we need is a common denominator, so that would be x minus 3, x plus 2 for both of them. We take our first term and we multiply it by the x plus 2. We take our second term and we multiply it by the x minus 3. We distribute the 5 to each of the terms. We distribute the 3 to each of the terms. And remember, that's a negative. So when we do that, it becomes a positive 9, and that gives us 19. And then 5x minus 3x gives us a 2x. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to be simplifying and stating the excluded values. Our common denominator is going to be x minus 7 and x. And so what we have is x minus 7 and x. So for the first one, we're going to multiply it by x. And for the second one, we're going to multiply it by x minus 7. So when we multiply by x, we get 3x. When we distribute the 2, what we get is 2x minus 14. So when we combine the terms, 3x plus 2x is 5x. And then we have minus 14. And our common denominator, I'm going to put the x in the front, and then I have x minus 7. Now the other thing I have to do is I have to state the excluded values. So in this case, the excluded value would be x cannot equal 0 and 7. Now for this next one, my common denominator is x minus 2 and x plus 1. And so we're going to do that for both of them, x minus 2 and x plus 1. And so for the first one, we're going to multiply it by an x plus 1. And for the second one, we're going to multiply it by an x minus 2. Now this is a little bit more difficult because we have two binomials, so we have to FOIL it. So that gives us x squared. And then we have minus 3x. Then what we have is plus x. And then we have minus 3. For the other one, it's a little bit easier. That's 4x minus 8. Now, we have to remember that we have a subtraction sign here. So we're going to bring the x squared down. And then we have negative 3x, x, and we're subtracting a 4x. So that right there is going to give us negative 6x. Then we have negative 3 minus a negative 8, so that would be like plus 8. And so that right there would give us a plus 5. And so what we have is x minus 2 and x plus 1. Now sometimes when we have trinomials, we need to factor them because they might cancel, and we're looking for two numbers that multiply together give us 5, add up to negative 6, and that would be negative 5 and negative 1. So what we have is x minus 5 and x minus 1. And then our denominator is x minus 2 and x minus 1. Sorry, x plus 1. So nothing's going to cancel. Now, when we're looking at our excluded values, it's always what the denominator can't equal. So it cannot equal a 2, and it cannot equal a negative 1. Now, for this next one, it's a little bit more complicated. We're going to factor the denominators because these are quadratics. So that's going to be x minus 2 and x plus 2. And then for the other one, it's going to be x minus 2 and x minus 2. So for the first one, if we're looking at this, what we notice is they both have an x minus 2. So I'm going to bring that down, x minus 2. And then what's missing is we have an x plus 2 and we have an x minus 2. So when we're looking at this, for this first one, what we're going to do is we're going to multiply it by the x minus 2 because it's missing an x minus 2. And for this other one, we're going to multiply it by an x plus 2 because it's missing an x plus 2. So that gives me x squared minus 2x, and then it gives me plus 1x plus 2. I'm going to add the like terms, and that gives me x squared minus x plus 2. That one is not factorable, so we're not going to try to factor it. And then we have an x minus 2, x plus 2, and an x minus 2. Or we could have done an x minus 2 squared if we wanted to. Now, looking at our excluded values, we're looking at our denominator and what x cannot equal. And x cannot equal a 2 and a negative 2. So looking at this next one, once again, what we're trying to do is find a common denominator. And so we see that our common denominator is x minus 9 and x plus 2. And so we multiply this left one right here by the x plus 2. So that gives us 3x plus 6. For this other one, we're going to multiply it by an x minus 9. And that gives us 4x minus 36. And when we're subtracting them, just remember when we subtract, that negative goes to both of these. So that right there would be negative x. And then we have plus 42. And then we have the x minus 9 and the x plus 2. So that right there gives us our answer. When we're trying to find our excluded values, it's what x cannot equal. So x cannot equal 9, and it cannot equal negative 2. If we're looking at letter E, first thing we're going to do is we're going to factor it because we see quadratics in the denominator. So I'm going to factor out an x, and that gives me an x minus 3. When I factor this one, it becomes an x minus 3 and an x plus 3. So I'm looking to see what they have in common, and I see that they both have an x minus 3. And then this has an x, and this one has an x plus 3. So for the first one, I'm going to multiply it by an x plus 3. So I get 5x plus 15. For the second one, I'm going to multiply it by an x, and that gives me a 2x. So what I get is a 7x plus 15. And then my denominator is x minus 3, and x plus 3. Now, when I'm looking at my excluded values, once again, it's what gives me 0 for the denominator. So x cannot equal 0, 3, and negative 3. For the last one, once again, I see quadratics in the denominator, so I'm going to factor them. This is a special factoring pattern, a difference of squares. And that would be 2x minus 1 and 2x plus 1. This one is a trinomial, so I'm going to use the x method. Two numbers that multiply together give me an 8, add up to a 9, so that would be 8 and 1. Because the leading coefficient of 2, I divide it by 2. And that gives me x plus 4 and 2x plus 1. So when I'm looking at this, what I notice is that both of them have a 2x plus 1. So I'm going to take in my denominator, put the 2x plus 1, because that's what they share. And then what's different is the left has an extra 2x minus 1, and the right has an x plus 4. So I'm going to multiply the left side by the x plus 4. So that gives me x squared plus 4x. And then for the other side, I'm going to multiply it by the 2x minus 1. Now this is a little tricky because this negative right here, think of this as like a negative x. So it becomes negative 2x squared plus x. So when I combine the like terms, I get negative x squared and then plus 5x. And then I see that that can factor. So I'm going to factor that and then take out a negative x, and that gives me an x minus 5. And so my denominator is 2x plus 1, 2x minus 1, and then I have x plus 4. And then next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to look at my excluded values. And my excluded values, once again, it's what gives me 0 in the denominator. So x cannot equal plus or minus 1/2. That's from the 2x plus 1 and the 2x minus 1. And then negative 4.